See, I got another road over there. Call to order the comprehensive land committee meeting of Monday, May 13th, 2024. Could we stand, please, for the Pledge of Allegiance?
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Could we have the roll call, please?
Chairman Matthew Kopler.
Here.
Member Todd McClary.
Present.
Member John Eric Hoover.
Here.
Member Denise McKenzie.
Present.
Comments from the general public? I don't see anybody has signed up. Is there anyone in the audience that would like to speak? Is there anyone in the audience? Is there anyone else in the audience that would like to speak?
He just wants to say his address.
5439 Blue Point Drive, Dave Mueller. Is this on? I had an opportunity to look at the survey. I still am concerned about the fact that anybody can put anything in there, whether they're city residents or not. I have received email from people outside of the city wishing to voice opinions regarding the nature of that survey, and I am concerned that we're not going to be able to filter out that. You do have the ability to list your street, but anybody can pick any street, and it just may tend to skew results. So I'd like to see the kind of results that we're getting, and maybe do some analysis on that. There's also a situation that I believe, while we're asking for particular ideas, and I think all that's good, with each choice comes a consequence, and we really don't identify that, but that will come later. And I appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else wish to speak? Okay, we'll move on to comments from the city manager and committee members. We'll start over here this time. Denise? Yeah, I know. Oh, wonderful. I had nothing either. So with that being said, we move to the agenda, comprehensive land use plan update. Tammy.
Hello, everybody. Nice to see you.
Long time no see.
I know, long time no see. So,
Your microphone, please.
Tammy Rana, Rana Consulting, Safety Harbor. Nice to see you all today. So today we're going to be going over the conservation and coastal management element policies for Goal 2, which is regarding coastal resiliency, and Goal 3, which is regarding emergency preparation and evacuation. So let's go ahead and start with that one if you want to. So I'm not going to go through every single one. Hopefully that you have read through them, and maybe you can just point to any that you need clarifications on, or if you have suggestions for other wording. But essentially with coastal resiliency, we're looking at making sure that we're keeping abreast of the risk as it changes over time, and that's through mapping, such as what you did this past year with your vulnerability assessment. So doing that periodically, looking at ways that you can harden and make more resilient your public infrastructure, how you can use the benefits of the natural environment to help the community be resilient to flood events, and then looking at land planning and regulations to ensure that as you're developing and redeveloping properties in the future, that you are applying best practices to make sure that those properties are safe and secure, and people that are around them are also safe and secure from flooding. The next objective is relative to building standards. So those would be the actual, how do you look at your, FEMA standards relative to buildings that need to be redeveloped, reconstructed over time, looking at development within the coastal construction control line and those sorts of things. And then the final one is relative to risk financing and insurance, which is primarily relates to the community rating system under the National Flood Insurance Program. So let me go back up here to the top, which will be on page 39. Does anybody have any questions or see anything that you'd like to suggest alternative wording? I will note that the lion's share of the city does fall within the coastal high hazard area, which is a designation that we will put on the future land use map when we update that map, just so we, as planning over time, we can see what's in the coastal high hazard area and what is not. And that area is defined in statute as the elevation of the Category 1 storm surge line that's been developed by the Sea, lake, and overland surges from hurricanes, or the SLOSH model. So that's something that's developed by the Tampa Bay Regional Planning Council. They periodically conduct a study of where that line exists, and then we update our plans to reflect that.
Minor thing on page 15, right side, CCM 2.4.5, velocity zone, item B, you carried over the A, and that we capitalize those things just so it doesn't end up being a spelling error later.
Sure. Let me get to it.
In acute.
2.4. Oh, there is no 5, right? Is that what you're saying?
No, item B, acute care medical facilities. You crossed off the little A, made a capital A, but you left the little A in there. Just make you aware of that.
Okay. That's under H, right? Is that what you're talking about?
No,
H?
B.
Oh, B. There's another one down there that says.
Well, yeah, I don't know if your pages are the same.
Yeah,
as
it's
ours.
page 41 on yours.
Oh, sorry. Yeah.
So
Page-
under 2.4.5,
Velocity V zone, item B.
okay. Acute. Oh, I see what you're saying. There's
Yeah.
another A in there.
Yeah,
Got
so
it.
our page is 15. So.
Got it. Thank you. One thing that I was just discussing with the building department, they do periodically work with the Florida Department of Environment or Emergency Management. I think they're looking at the freeboard height, and then also there's some other things they're looking at relative to the percentage of damage before such time as a property would have to be elevated or mitigated. So I didn't know if we should just put a little placeholder in here about the city working with the state over time, just kind of as a good faith sort of thing that.
Yeah, well, I thought it was a state requirement that actually set the percentage of, it's the percentage of value of the structure for a rebuild has to be occur. I thought that was a state requirement, though.
I don't know that
It is, but
yeah.
I think they're looking at making it more stringent than what the state requires. And
Oh, I see.
in
Okay.
doing that, it helps gain more points towards the goal of reducing everyone's flood insurance.
And I
Gotcha.
think that's where we would put it was relative to the CRS, that we would indicate that the city
Yeah.
coordinates with FDEM just to monitor or to review their standards over time to make sure that as much protection as possible or as feasible.
Yeah. The same goes with the freeboard. I think, what is it right now? The state requires +1.
+1. Now they're looking at +2.
Yeah. So,
And I think there was a suggestion that there'd be like a public workshop to discuss those changes going forward.
yeah. I didn't want another one of those 11 o'clock at night meetings with council. So
Pardon?
I said I didn't want another 11 p.m. council meeting night. So we'll have a special discussion on that.
I don't see the free board being that big of a
So we can go ahead and move
I don't see
forward.
that being as
It's only new
big.
construction and
Well, it's
mitigation.
new construction and mitigation, but the additional foot value isn't incrementally huge.
Right.
In comparison. I mean, what's 14 to 15 feet? Nothing.
another layer block.
Yeah.
However, reducing that substantial number is
The one that will have a major effect is the reduction or raising of the percentage.
Yeah.
That would be a larger deal to most people
Yeah.
than the freeboard height.
So, and I will just point out that the goal 2, what's going on here? Goal 2 is where the city's peril of flood policies, so sort of that whole mix of policies gets at the peril of flood. So, looking at natural ecosystem services, looking at your hardening procedures, looking at how you're maintaining your CRS, all those things work together to constitute the peril of flood policies. And if there are no more questions, we can go down to goal 3, which is relative to emergency preparedness and evacuation.
Before you go on, I did notice there were lots of new policies in too that we didn't have before, I guess.
Yes, and let me tell you so there wasn't a lot. When I went through, I sort of dissected everything that was existing relative to resilience. So I pulled those over, but there wasn't a lot. And now that we have this added requirement of showing peril of flood responsiveness, so that's when I put those new policies
Gotcha.
in. So make sure over the next couple weeks before we're trying to take this whole packet to the Planning and Zoning Board on June 11th, which I hear is going to be a busy day. We'll talk about that later. But the Planning and Zoning Board is on June 11th, so you'll get a packet, because you're going to be sitting as City Council as well. But the club will also get a packet just to be able to look at everything that we've talked about over the last couple of months, just to make sure that you've covered, you've reviewed everything and you're okay with it. Because we do need to get this Planning and Zoning Board and one public hearing with City Council before we transmit to the state prior to July 6th, I believe is the date.
I think there's some numbering in goal 3. It starts with 231 and it goes to 233 and then it goes back to 231.
Okay, I'll check those.
And in the second 231, the one in the right hand column, it references Pinellas County. It might need to be Pasco.
Oh, okay. Where's that? Pinellas County?
Yes. New policy 2.3.1 private sector emergency plans.
Oh, okay. I live in Pinellas County, so sometimes I transpose. Thank you. 2.3.1, and I'll fix those numbering throughout. I'll just do a quick scan. One thing that I'm not certain as to the standing. I was doing some research regarding the level of service for hurricane evacuation. Previously in statute, there was a requirement that all cities, if you hadn't established a standard prior to, that you needed to adopt the 12-hour hurricane clearance for your hurricane evacuation. So I haven't been able to determine if that is still, I can't find it in statute anymore, so I don't know that it's necessarily still required to be in your comp plan. But I will make that phone call to, I guess, Pasco County emergency manager to find out if that's still applicable or not. But what I did learn is that a 12-hour clearance is a fast clearance, 18 hours is the moderate, and the 24 hours is slow. And that's typically the time when everybody who you've been asked to evacuate in I believe it's in the category 1, category 5, I believe. Or, hold on, let me find it.
Category 5.
Category 5. That's when everybody's on the road at that 12-hour mark. So they've been heading out, so many hours prior to the actual call. There'll be people who evacuate, and then they'll continue to file out until they get to that 12-hour mark. And I did see too that most people in Pasco County go to other parts of Pasco County, They'll go to out of state. Out of state was number 1. 2 was the other parts of Pasco County, and 3rd was to central, like Polk County. Those kind of areas. Kind of interesting statistics.
Is there a requirement? I mean, I don't see it here, but is there a requirement of, like, for instance, Pasco County has enough shelters to accommodate those?
So whenever you have development that's coming in that would be in one of those more vulnerable locations, one of the things that you would ask for, and I think we've indicated in here, is that provide information relative to how your people, like, where is there enough capacity on the roads for your people to evacuate? Is there enough shelter capacity within the county? I did receive just yesterday, someone sent me the ordinance from Pasco County regarding, I believe it's hurricane shelter impact fee, but the city's not subject to that, are they? Are they? Okay,
Not sure.
I'll look into that. And that might be something that, as new development comes into the city and they're looking at where their people would shelter, that they potentially could pay into that fund. And just thinking that might be an avenue for them.
And really, how would that work? Because theoretically, that would be a Pasco County shelter ultimately.
Right.
I mean, there's really nothing in the city that could withstand
No.
a shelter. So how does that agreement work, I guess, ultimately? Do we pay Pasco County X number of dollars to make sure that there's adequate capacity? Or,
No.
I mean, it doesn't
Right.
exist now. I know
Right,
it doesn't
yeah.
exist, but, as the city develops, how does that work? I guess from Pasco County's perspective, how does that work? I don't think they've really looked at it either.
I'll share that ordinance with you all.
Yeah.
We could take a look at it.
I mean, they would. The county is the direct line from the state on emergency management. I mean, we're not really in the chain. I mean, it ends with the county. Anything that we do is what we do.
Mhm.
But I don't know, and I'm not familiar that when a development occurs inside the city, if they are tacking on a emergency shelter impact fee.
We,
I'm now going to ask.
we
I'm
have-
pretty sure in citywide they don't.
Yeah,
I don't think county does either, though. So
No.
how does this
Yeah.
work, guys?
Well, it's probably potentially a section in an ordinance that they passed that they didn't read.
I mean, I know the county just converts their schools and opens them up and
Right.
blah, blah, blah. But ultimately, are the schools going to be enough? I know Tampa doesn't have enough.
Yeah, I mean, they can't be thinking of sheltering in place all 660-some-thousand people. I mean, there is not enough room for that.
So this hurricane preparedness mitigation fee was effective in 2004, and it says the county adopts a mitigation fee to address the impacts created by new development on hurricane shelter availability and evacuation capability in the county. So
Well, technically, we're in the county.
you are in the county. You are. So
Well, it's been.
But I think
when was
they
it
can-
adopted?
2004.
2004.
Well, so we go back and look at any development, I would think, and see if they were charging.
But I don't know that they can necessarily impose an impact fee for development in the without coordinating with you, of course.
Well, yeah, I mean, they can impose it upon the city, but then the city's got to impose it upon the individual developer. So it's kind of like a pass.
Well, it seems like it would be an agreement that you would
Yeah.
enter into. Like, there's this fee, and then almost like schools. So there's school impact fees. When a development comes into the city, we calculate what that impact fee is going to be for those students generated from that development.
Same thing
And-
for like sewer.
And I think the main things that would be restrictive in these policies were already in your comp plan relative to where you can locate developments that house vulnerable populations, such as assisted living and nursing homes and things like that. Those are just carried over from your existing comp plan. Okay. Any questions? Do you want me to move forward with the other ones in the other document?
The only other question is, do we have identified the city's civil defense coordinator?
That was my question too.
And it's a serious question since it's now sitting in here.
And it's been there. I think it was there from the beginning.
Sal, you got a new role.
No, not that Sal is it. I'm the civil defense coordinator. I understand that the city is putting together a comprehensive emergency management plan.
Mhm.
So perhaps, through that exercise.
Sal will be appointed.
Hey, Sal, you just got a new role, buddy.
No, I think, and it's a different title than the emergency manager. Your emergency manager, city manager. But I think in some places, other states where they would use those different terms, they were one and the same. But I don't know. I don't know if there is an appointment aspect to it, or if it's just, yeah, that's what your role is as well.
I have not seen it referenced in a comp plan before, but obviously it is a recognized entity relative to
It's so
emergency.
1970s.
Pardon?
It's so
It
1970s.
does feel
I mean, in reality, and the reason I brought it up is, should civil defense coordinator just be the emergency
Right.
manager
and
and
just change that.
just change the
title?
name?
And you're going to
Yeah,
call
I mean,
it
I would.
Or his appointee, you could put that in there in case he wanted to
designate.
designate somebody.
I wanted to, when I saw that, I was thinking I need to look up and see how in the county they've defined what that title, or even in the state, how they define that title. Because it may be the same, but it also may not be the same, and that's what we have to figure out.
Okay.
I mean, again, that's
But you're thinking the equivalent is the emergency manager?
well, no. What I'm saying is that's what I've seen in the past in other states. That's kind of the role that was absorbed as part of that. If you were the emergency manager, you're also the civil patrol official. But again, I think at the federal level, those have two different meanings, because it goes back to the heyday of when those were huge issues.
Yeah. Well, I mean, there are very specific, I've taken these classes before. It's been a lifetime, but they have these protocols and things. There's like these very regimented plans, and they have these titles, that you refer to, because everybody has to know who's doing what in an emergency. So if we can come up with, if you want to continue to use this, or if you want to do something different, then just let me know and I'll make that change so it's clear. I think that's the important thing.
Oh, wow. Director of Civil Defense makes a lot more than an emergency management coordinator.
Oh yeah. Again, they're at the federal level. There's differing definitions between an emergency manager and.
I mean, they have different roles. I didn't even realize they were two different. I thought they were all the same. That's why I changed it. But they're definitely two different criteria.
Does it look as though that those are locally defined or identified, like that every city has a civil defense coordinator?
Again, I'm looking at one website, so
Yeah,
it's, and you have to take it for what it is. But
I
it
think
seems to be a lot more associated with transportation and other types of activities. I'll say kind of like domestic and international travel arrangements, tracking those systems. It's a lot more in depth to the security aspect as opposed to emergency management. Get people out, and coordinate that.
there is undoubtedly a section of state law that refers back to. And we just have to find what that is. If it's changed over time, which my guess is they probably have changed it.
Take a look. Maybe the important thing to reference is your plan, not necessarily, because the plan will indicate the people responsible for implementing that comprehensive emergency management plan. I don't know if it's necessarily information that needs to be in your comp plan, because you're not going to go to the comp plan when you're responding to an emergency.
I mean, and the reference to this is just kept on file with the cities. Can't we just say kept on file? Because we're not really saying that they have to do anything other than keep it on their file.
Yep.
Maybe that's, kept on file with city records or something.
Yeah.
And the only reason I'm saying is we don't want to have to hire somebody just so they can keep a file.
Right.
Any other things to note? Point two, goal 2 or goal 3. So let's switch over to the other document that I sent, which looks like a staff report, because I was going ahead and getting that set up for the Planning and Zoning Board.
I'm sorry, where are we going?
So if you go to the document that shows the city logo up in the left-hand corner, it's called Staff Evaluation and Recommendation, a Word document.
Page 3.
Page 3. Gotcha. Okay.
Okay, so in addition to the peril of flood policies that we're looking at within the conservation and coastal management element, there were a number of other things that we identified when we looked at statute to see what things had changed that the city's comp plan needed to respond to. And so that's what you'll find in this document. So the first one relates to the transportation element. US 19 is now a system on the strategic intermodal system. It has been for a number of years. It used to be simply referred to as a facility on the Florida Interstate Highway System, but it's a much higher level facility. It's an important facility in the state for moving people and freight. So we just wanted to recognize it appropriately. And then also relative to level of service standards, when you have a state facility that's, and even county facilities that are traversing your community, that you coordinate with those adjacent or responsible governments to make sure that your level of service standard is the same. So it's just a little coordination process. The next one is policy T.1.6.9, recreational traffic. The requirement was the cities needed to, all the cities needed to have a policy that addressed improvements and safety considerations for recreational traffic circulation. So that's what I came up with. So prioritizing the creation of safe and efficient connections between recreational facilities, employment centers, and residential areas to encourage walk, bike, recreational commuting. Provide signage and wayfinding to guide recreational users to multi-use trails, fitness loops, and other outdoor recreation areas, and promote awareness of safety practices. So any changes to that would be welcome. So if there's any way to improve that, simplify it, make it more clear. So essentially, it's facilitating recreation. It's movement through the city. And some of these things you may not have yet. Maybe you don't have multi-use trails or fitness loops, but you could in the future, and then you just would point to those. I'm sorry.
The only tweak I had is you have recreational facilities, maybe create recreational facilities and uses. That way that includes parks and other, non-facility related recreational activities.
Yep. I think maybe instead of provide, maybe we should consider. You want to make it a little softer, consider providing signage, wayfinding to guide, or do you want a hard requirement?
I mean, to me, the if you wanted to get away with it, I mean, literally, you could put a sign right out in front of City Hall and say "Parks that way," that, and you
Yes.
provide it. So
You have,
it's
okay,
all
okay.
kind of weak as it is.
And comprehensive plan policies, for the most part, they're not code language.
Yeah.
It's not a, but it is something that plants a seed and said, this is the direction this is going to help us achieve um, the community that our community wants.
I just say, if you say provide, at least you got a shot at it. If you say consider, you're never.
Right. Okay. The next one is the infrastructure element, and I understand that the utilities folks are marking up an old document that I had just to indicate the data for existing conditions and projected conditions relative to your water supply and also your water supply facilities. And that would be through the year 2035 at minimum. So hopefully within the next couple weeks, week or so, we'll go ahead and get that marked up and create the document so you can take a look at it. And the next one is conservation and coastal management element, which is what we're working on.
Going back to the water supplies, I know there's going to be discussions on water quality issues, and there have been discussions on water quality issues throughout the city. Is that something that we integrate in here in terms of, yeah, you have a supply, but there's also a criteria that's got to be achieved as well, that maybe, and I don't know the terminology to do that, but yeah, you can provide it, but it's also got to meet certain criteria as part of the plan, whatever the correct criteria is.
I think if I'm not mistaken, I'm trying to remember what you had said to us. I thought it had elements of that. I mean, I don't think it got into down to the,
So it was a document that was kind of an accounting process, but then it gets into like issues, like what did you find? Did you notice that you had a facility that needed to be, maybe you're getting up on your the capacity on your water treatment plant and you need to be thinking about your next one. Or if you had issues relative to water quality, that would certainly be a place that you would discuss that. And then to follow on to that with a policy. So, and when you mark up this document and I'm able to see what your issues are, then I'll compare that to what you have in your comp plan already. And maybe I'm sure that you already have something in there relative to water quality for your potable water supply. Is that what it's potable water supply, correct?
Correct, yeah. I mean, like I know on coastal regions, one of the biggest dangers with pumping wells is you're starting to pump seawater.
all right.
And so
The
that
wedge.
heavily influences your comp plan because, yeah, we have 20% growth over the next 10 years and we have so many wells, we're good. Oh, now all the wells are pumping seawater.
Right.
What's
Well, if it's no longer potable water because it's now seawater, then you have a supply issue.
Yeah.
So all those things are relevant to this because you need to look out 10 years and the ability to serve your community, existing and projected growth. So yes, it's a comprehensive document. You may not have to follow. I mean, this is the one I did for Newport Richey in the past, so it's not going to be exactly. But every community is different and they have their own issues. But it's a water supply work plan, so everybody needs to do that. Also, refer to the Southwest Florida Water Management District Regional Water Supply Plan. I don't know that they've identified any water projects for West Pasco, but I will check to see that whenever I get to that point. So under number 3, conservation and coastal management element, we've been talking about these different policies. We've addressed energy efficiency. That's required in statute. We looked at policies to increase the resiliency of areas vulnerable to coastal flooding, severe storm events, and the impacts of sea level rise. Looking at new coastal redevelopment requirements within the coastal high hazard area, so that's in there. Looking at that appropriate out of county hurricane evacuation timeframes, that I'm going to check to see because I cannot find them in statute anymore since the time that we evaluated this. And then the last one is just an optional thing, but I just wanted to bring it to your attention. It says that if you want to have a floating solar facility, that you need to have a place for that in your comprehensive plan. So a floating solar facility needs to be identified as a land use category and have land development regulations that specify buffering or different types of requirements related to it. So I haven't heard you guys talk about floating solar facilities. I don't know if it's something that you're interested in or you want to address it later on whenever it does become a thing or if it ever becomes a thing. But it's in statute now, and so I brought it up. It's optional. Other things to handle.
Is there any interest in that?
Oh well. I don't see Duke Energy paying the cost of coastal land for a solar facility. I mean, you don't have a whole lot of patches of land in the city that can actually support that, where it's feasible to them.
Well, these will be floating.
But it says landscape buffer, so you're going to put a barge on it, put a
I
tree
don't know.
on
I
it?
guess you have to like screen it from people from seeing it, or I don't know.
Well, I think
I'm not
if you,
familiar with them.
I think if you were going to put a bunch of solar panels on a barge, people who love their views are going to have a holy conniption.
Unless a
Some
floating
people
solar
don't like looking
facility
at them on
is
people's
on,
roofs, even.
I mean, I thought this was,
maybe floating is on the land and it's on those structures.
well, yeah, because why would you have specified buffers and landscaping requirements? Not only are we putting them out on barges, but then we're going to put trees around them?
No, I would think it would be something landward, but maybe that's the terminology for the ones that you see out in West or East Pasco. Have you been out there and seen the?
Yeah, well, yeah, but those are on land.
I know, but is that a floating? Is that considered floating?
I was going to ask you that because I've never seen one on barges out on the water. Personally, I've seen wind farms. They try to do wind farms out on the water, but that's not solar.
Yeah, all the examples here, they're in the water.
Wow.
When you say float, it feels like water based.
Yeah.
Convert all our dockage to solar.
Well, no, this I guess.
It could be something that's right on the coastline, and then you buffer the land so that nearby residences it doesn't change their view.
So in this, it does say that, it could be on a lake or a water reservoir and even the ocean. So, I mean, if it were on a lake or a reservoir, which is more, I think, where you would probably be able to screen it easier, buffer it.
Which we really don't have many of
Yeah.
those here. At least not large enough to make it. I mean,
Well, I think
looking at Wikipedia, they have one on an irrigation pond. We don't have any of those. And council can decide.
I think the important thing is that at some juncture that you are interested in looking into this, that there would be a step involved, which would be updating your comp plan to accommodate.
I don't think it hurts to have it in there, I guess.
Okay.
I would say don't put it in there because the only real water you have is your coast. And I think your citizens are going to go
This doesn't say you have to do it.
crazy.
No.
This just says if we, for some reason, want to entertain that at some point, then we do.
Right. So this is not a policy. This is just the bullet points that came out of the letter to the state. So we would simply say the city's not going to pursue this at this time.
That'd be my vote.
Everybody good with that?
Oh, they got two
Yeah,
comments.
we're gonna let comments. I just want
What
to make
was
sure everyone's done
What was the
here
vote?
first.
Oh, what was your?
My vote's against saying no.
Just take
Keep
it
it out. Yeah.
You
I
got it.
don't care. I think,
Are you saying no to that?
yeah, if you don't comment.
Yeah.
Yeah, you feel free to come up,
Yeah.
please. I'm sorry, I just wanted to make
If you
sure they
want
were
one
done
on your
talking.
canal, we'll put it there.
Just reinforcing this, Cynthia Malin, 5446 Blue Point Drive. Doesn't the state of Florida have oil rigs where they have to be over the horizon? Do you know what kind of glare solar panels would be on the water coming in? I have them on my roof, and I know what they how much glare they put out. So off of the water would be horrendous.
Yeah.
They're really a great thing, but
Be that far off.
who gets the power?
Well, it couldn't be that far off the water because you have to run the cabling to the panel. So it can't be that far off the coast if you were to put it on the coast. Just doesn't make sense.
Right.
So it's got to be close to the coast in order to run a wire to it.
And I don't think the people in the bayou want you to be putting something really glary out there.
A pretty solar farm.
It's just the right size.
Yeah, it is.
Off of your canal, Todd.
Too thin wouldn't work. Sorry.
Probably,
I got enough room. I'll just stack them all up in there. Thank
and it probably wouldn't be very good for your sea grasses either.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think you'd get around the because it's all technically protected wetlands on the coast. So I don't know how you the world.
So
you
this was just
possibly-
something we recognized it was a change. We wanted to acknowledge it, bring it to your attention. There is no policy that's been developed for this. It's just we're going to report back to the state that we did this, this, and this, and oh, by the way, this one the city's not pursuing.
It's not practical.
Yeah.
My vote's not practical.
Dave Mueller, 5439 Blue Point Drive. Rather than, putting it on the water, I don't believe that would be the highest and best use for that particular event. But potentially something like on a Walmart roof or Walmart parking area, to put solar panels there if we're trying to mitigate something or provide extra power. I think there's an untapped resource there that we could potentially look at in partnership with them and Duke and whoever needs to happen. So the idea of floating might not necessarily be on water, but potentially on land where, the power floats back before the grid that way. I don't know.
I do believe in the goal 1 for conservation that we did have something regarding energy efficiency and using those big box roofs as a potential. So good comment.
I say get rid of the floating solar facilities.
Okay.
I'm fine with that.
Okay, the next one is the intergovernmental coordination element. So there was a requirement that any references to voluntary dispute resolution processes would be replaced with mandatory. So replaces references to voluntary dispute resolution processes to mandatory dispute resolution processes. And so there were 2 instances where the city's code or comp plan said voluntary. So we just changed those under the objective I 1.5. So efficiently resolve intergovernmental disputes in a timely manner through mandatory dispute resolution processes. And then the supporting policy to adopt and implement mandatory dispute resolution processes to address conflicts effectively. And the last one is to utilize the Tampa Bay Regional Planning Council's informal mediation process to amicably resolve conflicts with neighboring local governments.
We fall under the Tampa Bay Regional Planning Council.
Yes.
Yeah, we're
Members too now.
not officially, but no, it works.
Looks good to me.
Okay, so for this is another one too. For the capital improvements element, there's a requirement that cities annually update their capital. Well, it's actually called a schedule of capital projects. I think it is. So there's a capital improvements plan, but anything relative to the comprehensive plan is a level of service standards you put into a subset that's called like a schedule of capital improvements or projects. So on an annual basis, I mean, you could just pop in your 5-year capital improvements plan, but if you have that, we should probably include, I guess for this past year, right, you're probably getting ready to think about your next, whatever you have that you adopted last year, we'll go ahead and include this. You do a capital budget, but do you do a 5-year?
I will find it.
You do have a capital improvement plan in parts that was brought on. You would know, or he would know, how complete it was, but I know you all were implementing. And I knew last year you were starting it, so you had it for various departments, but I don't know how closely it aligns with this.
So One of the things, how you would utilize this facet for the comprehensive plan is if, say, you identified in your water supply facilities work plan that you needed to have a certain expenditure on something, so then you would make sure that you had it in that comp plan related schedule. And the change in the statute that's pointed out here is before comp plans had to rise to the level of financial feasibility, they do not now. So that was one of the things that was taken, but they still want to see that you're thinking about what your needs are and, you know, budgeting over time.
So you can put it in and not have to financially account for it?
Well, usually in the first 3 years, you have to indicate a funding source. And then the fourth and fifth year can be more projected. It's like, look, we're going to get a grant. You know, we're thinking by 4 years out, we'll get a grant. So, I mean, yes, you should indicate what you can pay for in the first 3 years, but I don't think that Tallahassee is going to come and knock on your door if it's not financially feasible. And then the last one is a new requirement from the last couple of years, and I'm pretty sure that you guys have not adopted a property rights element. Is that correct? Does that ring a bell to anybody?
To my knowledge.
So, and one of the things when you go to the state's website and you pop it up because you want to look to see what prior documents have been filed, it pops up and says you must have a property rights element. So that's what this does. So this is just language for your consideration. The goal would be, in accordance with those statutes, that this comprehensive plan shall respect judicially acknowledged and constitutionally protected private property rights. And then it just goes on to just say a few things about, the control of property, the property use, property owner privacy, and the ability for the property owner to dispose of his or her property through a sale or gift. So everybody had to do this. But if you have any suggested alternative language, I'd be happy to make note of those. Everybody good?
Question on property use. It's my understanding that we have current zoning and uses now, but we also have future uses. And my understanding that even though you're okay to do something in your current, if the future doesn't agree with that, they can't do it because it doesn't align with future. We've read in that issue, right? Is that calling that out appropriately in this? The right of property owner to use, maintain, develop, and improve his or her own property, personal use, or the use of any other person, subject to state law and local ordinances. Is that so? The state law and local ordinance includes that.
It does, because the state law says you shall have a comprehensive plan, and all your things shall be consistent with it, and then your local ordinances adopt your comprehensive plan. So the comprehensive plan is sort of the reference. Everything must align relative to land use and development, growth and development, must align with the comprehensive plan. So it is kind of a tiered approach. But yes, it would be covered in state law and local ordinances.
I guess the one question I have, I'm not sure how this is worded correctly, and I'll give you the theory that I'm thinking, but isn't there requirements, or not requirements, but is there anything referencing a landowner's peaceable enjoyment of their property or something as well? So for instance, I own my parcel, and the parcel next door is a 24/7 concert hall, outdoor concert hall, or something along those lines. So their use prevents my peaceable enjoyment or something of that. I know there's been a lot of back and forth on peaceable enjoyment of property as part of your property rights. I don't know how that can be.
So you have ordinances that protect or uphold the public health, safety, and welfare. And so that's where those like noise ordinances and things would be hashed out. This is really very elemental. It's just pretty much to say.
And that's why I'm saying private peaceable enjoyment or something like that. Just on the very high level, that's one of the rights you have is peaceable enjoyment of your land.
I think we probably want to get Nancy involved just to make sure that we're not, we want to be
I
careful.
know there's been a lot of litigation. That's why, and it's actually gone to that as well. With that is one of your property rights. So
I'm going to look it up.
yeah, it's
And
just
we'll
kind of
report
following
back.
that codification.
Okay.
Yeah, you are entitled to that as well. I don't know, the legalese, and again, Nancy probably more familiar, or is definitely more familiar than I am. But I know that
Because above it says the property owner has the right to use, maintain, develop, and improve.
yeah, you can sell it, you can use it, you can build on it,
But you just can't use it.
you
to
can't
the,
enjoy it.
You can't use it to the detriment of somebody
Correct.
next door. So, here's my laptop. Okay, let me look into that and see if it looks problematic at all for 'cause sometimes you can kind of open up a.
It can go both ways, in terms of, oh yeah, now you're overly restricted. But if someone in the city wants to buy their property, they want to enjoy it for what it was.
Such a measuring noise is an issue.
Yeah, I don't think we need to, just at a high level, we can just say, yeah, you do get enjoy. I don't want to say, yeah, you can't piss off your neighbor with noise or anything, but you do have the right to enjoyment of your property.
Right. No,
Something along those lines.
Yeah, and that's the kind of thing that drives those noise ordinances.
Correct.
buffering
Yeah, yeah.
requirements.
I'm just trying to set the
Right.
high bar, yes, but then let everyone else. Well, what is enjoyment, and how do you? Well, enjoyment is not 65 decibels at the
Right.
property line.
Yeah,
okay.
I think we have things saying is we don't have the top.
Yeah, we have the
goal in
ordinances
place.
now, but we don't have the top thing that drives the ordinances
Okay.
theoretically.
Gotcha. I'm following. Great. Okay. So that is all that we have relative to the materials for today. There's two more pieces that are left. Your post-disaster recovery or redevelopment plan, post-disaster redevelopment plan. And so I think that's probably in pretty good shape. And I wanted to get your building department's review on that or input on that as well. And the very last one is how can, through public education and engagement, how could we get the whole community involved in conservation and coastal management? So those are the two things that are left, in addition to the water supply facilities work plan and the capital improvements plan, if you have one of those.
The only question I had is at the bottom of page 6. Yeah, the purpose of so we're amending the 2020 plan. All right, never mind.
So right now you have a 2020 plan, which means that's the horizon. So we need to push that out. So I'm going to, when I put this together, especially with the water supply facilities work plan, because it does do some projection out to that 2035 period or 2040, you can choose to go out longer if you'd like to. But usually for a city, about 10 years is good. Counties go out to 20 years. So I think what we'll go ahead through this action is to go ahead and rename the comp plan to the 2035 Port Richey Comprehensive Plan. And then as you have time, we can go into the future land use element and some of the other things that would really look at your future land use map and what you need on that map to get you to 2035. And I think a lot of what you're doing now relative to visioning and your CRA plan, I think will be good information for looking at those documents after such a long time.
Well, given that we have the autonomy to change this at any point, right?
Yes, you can.
Do we want to make it 10 years or maybe make it 15 years? Because it's obviously a process to go through this, and for the most
Yes.
part, probably won't change a whole lot. Make it 2040.
I would agree. 2040 would be good. Some communities are going to 2050. I don't know that those communities are changing a whole lot over that time frame. Maybe that's why they selected it. Maybe if you're, out with a greenfield area and you're really developing a lot, maybe you keep it at 10 years.
I would keep it with
Shorter.
the pace of everything going on right now with transportation and everything else. You probably want to keep it shorter rather than longer, because I know a lot of companies are going to be driving cars in 15 years, or is there going to be like an Uber type car sharing? So you don't need parking. They're reevaluating. You don't need parking garages, and they're reevaluating all that. So I would keep it to the lower end than 2050. You know,
So maybe
I'm just thinking the costs involved to go through this process of change, and obviously if we did it for 10 years, I mean, obviously
there's
we 2020
there's not
well
a big,
past that.
it's not a big lift to update your, I mean, if you want to as a community to do a big overhaul of your comp plan, yes, that's more of a, but do you have to do that when you get to the end? You could just look to make sure that you're compliant with
yeah, I
state
mean,
statute.
2035, you could say, yep, still looks good, 2045, and zip right through.
That's fine if it's that easy. I just thought maybe it had to be a whole
No,
I-
used to.
process.
I think you want to force people to ask that question sooner rather than later. I mean, I think the city has not gone through a dramatic change in the 20 years that this horizon has been, but I think the next 10 years there will be.
Maybe so, yeah.
And if nothing else, it forces the council to say, hey, we have to look at this. And I think there's value in that.
And I think with any, regardless if you had like a 20-year plan or whatever, I think that a planned revisit at 10 years or 7 years or whatever, usually to look at a community's vision at least every 10 years is good practice. Because so much changes. Different people that live here than what lived here whenever you did.
I like 10 years because it's long enough that people will think ahead, but it's not so long that they won't care. I'm going to be dead in 10 years. What do I care? So 10 years or 15 years is the ideal in my mind.
Okay.
Quick question going back to the water treatment work plan. So we're in a process that potentially we're going to have to do a full-blown water treatment work plan.
No. Well,
No, I'm just saying that we will because if you don't remember our last conversation, we have a PFAS problem.
yes.
And so we're in a process that hopefully will provide us funding to address that issue. And one component of it is you have to develop a full-blown work plan for the facility.
Oh, for this DEP permitting? Is that what you're talking about?
Well, yeah.
Okay.
I mean, it's for the funding piece of it to get, step one is getting on a list. Step two is once you're on the list, you have to apply for the funding,
So-
which is the preliminary
So
design.
think about
and
this
analysis.
10-year water supply facilities work plan as a long-range planning document that informs your comp plan.
Yeah.
When you're looking at, you're actually going to be building something or upgrading something that's more permittable, that's probably a much more detailed plan. But this can be, I think, pretty simplified.
Yeah, well, my question is going to be is we're going to have a much more detailed work plan than what that is.
Yes, you are. Mm-hmm.
And the question is, are we able then to swap those out? Because I think that's going to be a more informative document than what we're doing now.
So actually, the water supply facilities work plan is a part of your data and analysis.
Right.
It's not an adopted policy.
Okay.
Certainly, there could be policies that come out of that assessment that says, oh, we must do this by a certain date. So you could swap that out
Okay.
within your data and analysis section without having to do enough. The important thing is that you did it.
I mean, there's time-wise, they don't sync up well. So
Yeah.
we need this now, so we have to do this.
Welcome to
But
planning,
it's just,
yeah.
I know that in 8 to 10 months, we're probably going to have a fuller
Yeah.
engineered type
Mhm.
work plan
Yep,
that probably will go out 20 to 30 years.
Right. And so then you'll be ready for, this, I believe it's every 5 years that the regional water supply plan is updated, and then the cities have 18 months to do their plan and, to kind of sync everything up. So it's going to help you at some
Yeah.
point for the next one.
Yeah.
But you
As
won't
part
have
of
to.
that plan, do you have to do projections for population growth and everything else over the next 30 years? I figured that. I assume, we have to do for this plan projections as well
For 2035,
for up to 2035. So we probably want to make sure those two documents at least match together.
and
there's-
projections are, for cities, there's no entity up above that's doing your projections. Bieber will do a county projection, and then you can kind of look at what your share is to what the county is, and see. There's just many different ways to do a population projection, but it's not to say that things change and you might have a different projection in 3 years than you do right
Well, yeah,
now.
I just thought
typically for-
having one projection and another projection 8 months later is that's what I'm just.
Yeah.
Typically, those facility review plans, they're going to go out 20 years because that's the window the
budgeting,
feds
yeah.
and the states
Yeah.
like to see. So this will be a basis for a part of that, but then it's going to take it another 10 plus years. So.
Okay, well, thank you.
Is there any other discussions on this particular topic? None? Is there any comments from the public on this? No. Real quick, as a follow-up to an older item, the Cody River Landing, Imagine Cody River Landing. So we have the survey out.
The survey is
We have
out.
surveys back.
The survey is out as of Friday. Just a second ago, I looked and there were, I believe, 28 responses, 27. I'm looking at the streets that you live on. That's what the question was. And I have 2 that says they do not live in the city of Port Richey. There were 2 that did not finish. And I think when you get to the end, you have to respond in some manner, and maybe they dropped off. But the percentage rate is pretty good. I think it was like early, like 90%, 92% or something like that. It's about 12 minutes to take the survey, but some people are taking longer. So, but it's about 12 minutes on average. Yeah, and I don't know if this is something that you want to look at it over time. I know that I think that you have the ability to go into this platform and look at the preliminary results, but whatever you guys need, just let me know.
Are we not capturing the street? You just asked a question. They live in the city?
We're capturing the street.
Okay.
2 people said that they did not live in the city, so they have that option. You live in the city or you don't live in the city.
Then they provide the street they live on if they live in a city.
In the city.
So
we
because
took
they could
all
live in Port Richey and not be in Port Richey.
Sal provided all the streets in the city, and then those ones that I think you.
Oh, so they have.
It's a pick list,
So if they live in the city, they're not just saying, yes, I live in the city, provide a street. They actually pick the city and live in.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
but you have an option.
The only place where we lose it is if they're like on a Washington or a Grant.
Congress,
That's where
stuff
we
like that.
kind of lose those people,
Yeah.
which we discussed.
Or anybody can pick any street.
Well, I mean, yeah,
No,
if they're looking to
that's-
skew
I'll
the
list.
results, but look, the federal government can't get the voting right. So what?
The problem with having too tight of it, like this is not a statistical survey, right? So we're not like sending you a survey form like the federal government does or the census and saying, you need to fill this out. Or like I get things for my business. It's like they tell me, this is your password and you have to do it. So they want to know I got to comply. In this particular case, when it is sort of voluntary, you don't want to give people too much friction, like too much that they don't want to take the survey, and people are sensitive to privacy. So in this particular case, they don't necessarily have to indicate where, who they are, but a fair number of them have given us their email address because they want to be kept up to date with this. So it's optional, but people have lots of different feelings about privacy, and we don't want, you don't want to get to the end and say, oh, we only got 50 surveys back and then we hear on the street, I didn't take that survey because I had to put my personal information. So it's not a perfect system, but typically when you can get as many responses as possible, and we can sort through these to see, hopefully people tell the truth. I have faith in my fellow man that they're honest. So, but we can sort through that. We can look to see who's in the city.
So this is more like a pulse of the community as opposed to a statistical survey that you would have to literally either go door to door or truly randomize it, getting the age demographics, the income demographics, and all that. This is more just a pulse of, this is kind of what everyone's feeling at this
Right.
point.
And typically, you only see those statistically valid surveys on a countywide basis when they're looking at like what's the quality of life and what's the economy like, but they're very costly, but they are statistically valid. They know how many people they need to hear from. They spread it out geographically. They have follow-up phone conversations. I mean, there's a lot to surveying that's not what this is, but this is definitely to get a feel. And when you have a lot of responses, it's not statistical, but you have kind of that bell curve, right? You got the people who are saying this and the people who are saying that, but then what is that middle part? And a lot of it too kind of relates to preferences. So I think it's valuable information, but we need to make sure that we get this out to as many people as possible. I did go out on the weekend on the river and handed out some flyers to the businesses, and I don't know how long those will stay up because they're saying, oh, we'll put them in the bathroom. But yeah, I think if we can just sort of ask friends and neighbors and businesses that we go to if they could fill out the survey.
One of the questions I had, and I don't know if you looked at it, I know, and I don't even know how many water bills you send out anymore, but is there a way to put the QR code on the water bill?
There is, but because of the short timing of it, we couldn't get out. I don't think we could get it out for this coming water bill.
For the following up?
Yeah, it'd be after the.
I work a lot in Zephyr Hills. Relatively small. It's not as small as Port Richmond. It's grown a lot. Did you have something you want to say?
I was going to say something about the water bill. You got to remember, it's also going to go out to all the customers that are outside the city.
Yeah, but then they theoretically say I'm not a city resident, or they can't.
Right, sure. That's I'll let you know that.
Yeah, but that's the one that hits every citizen is.
That's what I was thinking.
In Zephyr Hills, we had 700 survey responses, and this is probably 5 years ago or so, but it was all, your Chamber of Commerce. Do they do a blanket, like a Monday morning newsletter? That's usually a way to get the information out. Anybody who is church services, when they do the church program.
Council meetings.
Yeah, council meetings. At every council meeting, you say, hey, just FYI, take the survey. But you can drum it up just by word of mouth.
On the same side of the water bill, but I think we have most email addresses for water customers, don't we? That was supposed to be pushed to get all electronic.
I know they were pushing to get that. We'd have to follow up and see where they are with that.
Could we at least send an email to all the ones we have? To at least get a good portion of them.
What about your Nixle?
It is possible.
What about
Nixle as well would be a thing,
Next,
but
I think
we have a lot of.
Because Nixle, you could just send out the web link.
Yeah, we could send it out as an email. Like Nixle gets sent out as an email and a text message. And we could send out a text message to everyone who signed up, and let them know about the survey. And probably put the URL on there. I can pass that.
Yeah, that'd be an ideal, because then they just click on it on their phone. Start taking.
And it looks pretty good on the phone. I did look through
It
that.
does.
Survey Monkey.
I'll expect my Nixle.
Just if you send it, just keep in mind if you send it out as a community thing, if they're not signed up for community, they wouldn't get that. So it probably needs to be at least an advisory.
Yeah, I'll send that as an advisory.
think-
1036.
Was it alerts advisory community? Is it alerts?
Alert, like
Like,
alert.
get out of town.
advisory.
Yeah, so I think alerts advisory are by default checked when you sign up.
Yeah.
The community's not.
Right.
So-
It's all about this.
I think the important thing is just hit it from every angle that we have at our disposal. I know that the city does Facebook, and I don't know what the other social media that you use, but and it, just kind of a little bit of a regular flow of information.
When is the survey gonna? What's the deadline?
June 6th.
Okay, so we'll refresh it weekly. We'll refresh it weekly as we get towards June 6th, on both the website and Facebook, and then I'll see what I can do with Nixle tomorrow to
Okay.
get that out.
That's
Send
great.
out a Nixle every day.
Every day. People would love that.
And then you can respond.
We've got a limit too on how many we can send. Per
Oh, is
we,
it?
we actually can see the, what is it called? The,
IP
not the
address.
URL, it's the internet, or
IP
the,
address. IP address.
no, not the IP, it's actually for the computer. So my computer has a unique identity.
Oh, the MAC address. MAC
Yes,
address?
MAC address.
MAC address.
Is that what you call it?
MAC address, yes.
Oh, okay.
That's the unique one.
Yeah,
that-
so I can look, I can see, in fact, I've gone through and nobody has repeated. There's been no repetition. But if we start to see maybe more than 5, I thought, when I got this done last week, I was like, whew, I don't have to think about this for a while, but now I want to look. I'm constantly peeking to see what's going on. I'm monitoring. So,
Some internal controls.
yeah, there are some internal, we have those.
So is that what you guys are using, MAC address, not IP?
I'm going to tell you what it's
Because IP address would be any device on the network in the home would have the same IP address.
You're right. It's called an IP address.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So
That's the internet provider address, right?
Right.
Yep.
I thought it was like the.
so you get a
computer
new IP address depending on the network you're on. So if you're say at home and your Wi-Fi, all you would have the same IP address. When you go outside your home, you're on T-Mobile or whatever AT&T, then it's another IP address. If
Okay.
you go to Starbucks, you're on another IP address.
So I could do it 5 times and you'd never know.
Now the MAC address prevents you from doing it on the same device.
Well, I don't think that it's picking that information up. I haven't seen it anyway, but I can look.
So
for
MAC
it.
address would be actually better. But you can still do it. You can do it on your phone. Your
Yeah, I got
PC,
5 computers,
tablet.
so
Yeah, so I mean,
I
but-
still could do it 5 times and you wouldn't know.
but it's more regimented than
Well, hopefully, you
IP.
kind of get that bell curve.
She funds a couple of smart TVs, so I can get
You start to see what the rhythm is, and then these outliers will kind of fall out a little bit. So we'll just have to see when we get to the end and what confidence we have in it. But you might not have the confidence if you only got 50 surveys back.
I think people have more important things to do than try and skew these results.
Right. So. Okay.
Is there anything else for that project you want to address, or are you good?
I had sent to you later, or before I came up, there was some ideas for how we would lay out this room and the front room for the workshop. So I don't know if you want to talk about that now, or you want to.
I didn't have a chance. I think after about 8:30 today, I didn't have a chance to look at my emails. So
How about if because I know you guys have a busy.
yeah, we have a cutoff in 15 minutes.
Yeah. So let's do this. I did a little graphic. So I laid out some stations. I had 6 different stations. The last one was sort of like alternative 1, alternative 2. So if I could send that to you again with a little cover memo, and then you can send it out, and maybe we can just do over email. Would that work out?
Well, we wouldn't do that over email.
Oh,
Well, do we need to weigh in on that? Can we just give her the ability to do what she needs to do?
I think. Well, explain what your thinking is. I think.
Why wouldn't you do it over email? Why wouldn't we do it over email?
sunshine.
Oh, yeah.
There's that. Huh?
I mean, you certainly could do it to me, but then it's directly to me, but that's not going to help you guys make a decision together.
Would we fall under? We don't fall under.
Better safe than sorry.
That wouldn't be.
Okay.
He might.
So my ideas were that people would walk in, there'd be an orientation, someone standing there, would you like to sign up for updates? Any handout, I have to figure out what that handout would be, and then some form of a comment card, just because they have it, and they could pick those up anywhere. They come through, there'd be station 1, would be a what and why. What is a Magic Cody River Landing, and why are we doing this? And each one of these stations would have someone there, either from the consultant team or staff, that would be able to be conversant in whatever that station is. The second station would be what's currently allowed in the WOD and those zoning districts that apply to US 19 and the east side of US 19. And then this is one I was kind of thinking how we could take a example site, so a parcel, and show with Legos that you could either do, it's sort of like what we were getting at within the question about, would you prefer to have a tall building with a lot of ground space, or would you rather have something that's more spread out, that it may be shorter, but you might not be able to see through the building and you wouldn't have any places to hang out and, kind of like public space. So I thought that might be a way that someone could just sort of interact with, well, how would you do it if you had this view behind you, access to the water, places to hang out for public space? How would you stack those Legos to do that? So we'll think more on that. I'll get the architect. Thanks.
The City of Port Richey Lego edition.
Yeah. Who's got some Legos? Anybody have kids who got the Legos?
Lincoln Logs.
We are retirement age.
Yeah, I know. We can buy some, I guess, although they're probably really expensive these
That's a
days.
cool idea, though. I like that.
So the next one is Station 4, which would be the preliminary survey responses, because we'll have 3 weeks worth of survey at that point. I don't know that we should necessarily have boards with people. I don't know. What do you think about people being able to weigh in on the survey pictures in the room? They could go to a laptop or a iPad, and like if they haven't taken it yet, they could sit down and take it.
I mean, almost everyone, even you retirement people, have smartphones now. Just have the QR code that takes them right to. That way they can
And
just
they can just do it on their own.
do it on their own.
But are you thinking let them take the survey itself, but not necessarily do the dots? It's a lot of
Yeah, I wouldn't do the dots because then,
Yeah.
okay, everyone does the dots. Well, is that the same as your survey that you just take,
Right,
or
and maybe
is
you've
that
already
different,
taken it,
or are
already
they
taken the
conflicting,
survey.
or
Yeah, I agree. I think we should show the preliminary. Do you think we should show the preliminary survey results? Maybe
I
some-
wouldn't, because then they may change. You don't want to skew their response
Okay.
because
But we can
you
let
have
them.
groupthink then too. Well, everyone loves high rises. I must be stupid if I don't love high rises.
Right. So what we'll do is we'll have a board that describes what the survey is with a big QR code, and then we'll have some chairs that people can sit down with their phones and take the survey if they'd like to. So then the next one would be over here, the Google Earth view. I think the mayor had suggested that instead of us or somebody had before, instead of us like
Instead of the walking tour, yeah.
walking tour. Walking tours are fun, but so the Google Earth view.
You do it 95 degrees. Tell me how.
Yeah, I know. So they can see, like they can just ask a staff member to pull it up and say, well, what's over here and what does that look like? And then the last one was the Station 6. So I thought of 2 different things. You can look at the actual tax yield by a particular building type. So for instance, when we think about Walmarts that come to our community, we think, oh, that's economic development. We've got a big commercial spot. They're selling things, but it also has a lot of parking, and the parking is not taxed at the same level as the building. So sometimes when you have a downtown building creates a lot more tax revenue than what a Walmart would. But it's counterintuitive because you see a giant Walmart and you just think, well, that's a boon to the community. And there's some really good information out there. There's a guy named Joe Manicosi who has done a big evaluation of downtown Asheville, and he kind of looks at these downtown buildings. Okay, that's one alternative. The next one would just be sort of like what makes a great place. I mean, that's, it's been very evaluated, that there's, walkability, places for people to hang out, places to get an ice cream, so maybe instead of making it about the dollars and cents, we just kind of make it on more of the, how does it feel? How does it feel to be in a great place? And whatever that includes. So maybe, I don't know if you have any initial ideas about those last 2 boards, or we could do both. Tax yield by building type, just real simple, maybe 3 different types, a Walmart, a downtown building. We could certainly even use some downtown buildings in Newport Richey, whatever we think is appropriate. And then maybe, office building somewhere that maybe is a little bit more vertical.
I'll say my concern on the tax yield component.
Yeah.
It's always a tricky calculation because, yes, I can have a 10-story office building, multi-unit residential, first 2 floors, retail, whatever you want to do. That has a certain tax yield, and then my other building can be a 6-story office building. That'll have a smaller tax yield. But this
services required for those two are different as well, so they have offsetting costs. So
Yeah.
until you start getting into
So I
those
guess-
offsetting
I guess if you-
resource needs, I'd rather stay out of the conversation and
Yeah.
maybe what makes a great city
Yeah.
or something of that nature, because you're going to get into a lot of tricky calculations.
And I know that through your CRA process, you do look at what the taxable yields would be from redevelopment, because you use that to decide how much or a TIF that you're going to get, and so maybe that's a juncture that you're something that you do down the road if you decide to go forward with.
I just said what you were about.
Oh, okay, there you go. Okay, so
Took me a second. to find it.
any other thoughts on tax yield,
Other
great
than
place?
You arguing everything I just said, or
No. I don't disagree.
Just in your imagery, if you could find something that actually people may be able to relate to, Armature Works or somewhere where these, as you're doing comparative buildings or whatever, something familiar where you can actually go to it, and visit it in real time, as opposed to some hypothetical picture that you can't really get a feel of it.
Maybe what you do is you stay away from residential, but then that's not necessarily, because residential is something that you can do out there. Okay, I'll say typically we want to and I'm sure we could just divide it by the acreage, and usually it's by acre. So you get this much ad valorem by this acre versus this acre versus that acre, the different uses, but I'll take a look.
I'm just worried about skewing calculations on it, because the resource loads are different too.
It is a very variable analysis, maybe at the scale. Any other thoughts on the other stations? Do you think that that's going to get you, is there a burning question that you want to know? You've got the survey, but is there anything else? Not necessarily what you want to know, maybe it's what the public wants to know and feel comfortable with. So really it's an educational process for the people who are coming. What is a vision? Why this area? What's applicable to it now relative to what can you build out there? And that there.
I guess the idea behind the different stations, though, it's not linear, right? You may go in and start with station
Yes.
3 or whatever,
You
whatever's
can-
not busy.
Yeah, I was just making a little.
And I didn't know if you
No, no.
defined route through here. Or
No.
It's kind of once you get in, it's busier.
It's not like a European grocery store where you
One thing that I don't know on your orientation, a lot of times you'll have, when you go to the event or something, you'll have this passport that they check off the stations they've been to. It might be nice to just so people know that.
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't get to this one yet. Just to make sure they visit all of them.
Yeah, we can do that on the. It makes it like a game, right?
Yeah, and then maybe at the end
We can give
there's
something
a
away.
prize that you give out to the people that spent
Pizza.
their pizza. Would be a
A
great
degree
prize.
in planning.
And maybe a little trinket or something that you would get
Yeah.
as a drawing after you fill out all your cards.
Oh, another thing too, kind of as a giveaway, the Pasco MPO is doing some outreach for the long range transportation plan, and I have a friend who is a certified bicycle helmet fitter, and so I asked if she might be interested in just coming over and maybe sitting somewhere out, and she'll do free fittings, and people can take home a free bicycle helmet. So a little something to take home. We did it recently in Zephyr
Oh, that's
Hills,
cool.
and everybody liked it. So, and then the MPO is getting their word out, a little bit. And then we also, it's always nice when you can give something away, especially if they're spending their time, their evening with us. So.
Learn something new every day. I now know that you have to get your bicycle helmet fitted. I should buy you bought it from Walmart to put it on.
No, I'm actually a certified helmet fitter myself, and you have to, it doesn't take very long, but you do need to make sure that it's the right size, that it's tightened the right way. There's some other safety things. We'll save it for the meeting.
I got nothing to hurt. I don't wear helmets.
Anything else?
Good.
They're kicking us out.
Even though we don't think we need to.
Yeah. Come on, play with me. Okay.
Thank you, everyone.